Testing, testing, testing the microphone like a little goblin. Whoa. Oh my god. Am I gonna leave that in? Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. It's most definitely been a year. That's for sure. And what happens in years? Movies. There's been a lot of movies happening this year. In fact, this was one of the most overwhelming years of content that we have probably ever experienced. The old panoramic delayed a lot of productions, and so we got an influx of content, particularly horror content. But we've finally reached a point in the year where I'm no longer anticipating any horror releases, so I can finally rank every single horror release that I watched this year. I watched, and I need you to listen to this. I need you to listen up. I watched 82 horror releases this year. 82! And I didn't even get to about 30 of the movies on my 2022 watch list. That's not just including horror, but still. And whether that be because nobody had anything good to say about them, or they just didn't end up on streaming anywhere, there are a lot of movies still left over. They dumped about 50 releases into just October alone, so there were about half of those I didn't get to. A lot of them didn't really interest me too much. But all of that to say, I have my work cut out for me to rank 82 releases that I watched this year. 82 titles. I'm scrolling through. I'm like, literally, how is my dumb ass gonna fucking... Anyway, if you like this kind of thing, then click subscribe and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on the upcoming fun horror content. But before we get into it, I want to shout out a new company that I am affiliated with. Movie Palette has graciously partnered with me to get you guys a discount on some amazing artwork. If you haven't seen their pieces before, they take every single frame of a movie and they put it on a canvas. I personally got The Ring because you guys already know the color palette of that movie cannot be beat. They have hundreds of movies to choose from though, and for a little extra, you can customize your own palette if they don't have the movie you desire. But wait, you can also get 15% off with code Hippie15 at checkout if you want a little discount on your movie palette. They will be linked at the top of the description box, and they are a great gift for a movie lover in your life. Or for you, you know, treat yourself. But now, on with the video. And for today, I have decided to separate each category based on how many stars I gave these movies on Letterboxd. I'll start with movies that I ranked at a half star, the bottom of the barrel, and work my way all the way up to the 5-star films. And I'm gonna rank them in those categories as well because I just feel like otherwise I'll overwhelm myself. Also, just a disclaimer, all of this obviously is just my opinion. Entertainment value is extremely subjective, and this is a very personal list. So especially when we get into the half star to like 2-star rated films, take all that with a pinch of salt unless I give you a very apt reason as to why something is garbage. But for a lot of those movies, it's probably just because I was bored, and again, that's a very subjective thing. That being said, let's begin with all the movies that I gave a half star. Now, 4 out of the 5 movies in this category are ones that I couldn't finish. I will seldom not finish a movie, okay? I'm very much a completionist, but these upcoming movies, I just couldn't even give the benefit of the doubt. Couldn't finish them. Up first would be The Scary of 61st. You can find this one on Shudder. It was really hard for me not to be taken out of this one, especially because of the cheap quality of it. That, and I felt like there wasn't really anything going on. The Privilege is another one that got a half star that I didn't finish. It is a German Netflix original. I couldn't finish this movie largely due to the fact that I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. It was making no type of sense. And don't worry, I had the subtitles on. I can read, but not to dwell. Choose or Die was another half-star movie. This is another Netflix original that stars Asa Butterfield. And the last half-star movie that I couldn't finish was The Twin, another Shudder original. I really wanted to give this one my best college try, you know, because I really like Teresa Palmer, but I lasted like an hour into this movie and there was nothing going on. And maybe one of you out there can let me know if any of these movies are worth finishing, but I don't think so. Let me know. The last movie that I gave a half star in 2022 is one that I actually did finish because I saw it in theaters. That would be Pray for the Devil. This movie sucked so bad. I can't believe that movie studios still think that Catholicism-based horror has like a mass appeal. I mean, I get it. There are a lot of Catholic people in the world, but outside of that, who gives a shit? Outside of that world, nobody likes them or their ideals. Not to mention this movie feels so outdated, I felt like I was being transported back to 2008. So let us rank. I think that out of all of those, the easiest to forgive is The Twin, because it was trying its best. It was just so gosh darn drab. I would say my least favorite of those is probably Scary of 61st, with The Privilege coming in at a close second at 81. And then we'll kind of arbitrarily just throw Pray for the Devil and then Choose or Die on there. I put Choose or Die up above those because, like, Asa Butterfield, I guess. So that's 82 through 78 ranked. Let's move on to all the movies that I gave 1 star. The Cellar, another Shudder original with one of my faves from the past that I was really rooting for. It's Carly from the House of Wax remake in 2005, but in this one, she's playing a mother who is battling a math demon. It's just like my junior year of high school. Just incredibly boring. I actually couldn't finish this one either, but I gave it 1 star because, again, it's like they were trying. It's not horrendous, but I really feel no sense of incompleteness about it, honestly. Men also received 1 star, and you should fucking know why. Ah, yes, I love when a man tries to tell me how traumatic life as a woman can be without hiring a single woman or non-binary person as a writer, director, producer, editor, etc., etc. It's bullshit, pretentious bullshit, but it gets a star for being very gorgeous, okay? Dashcam also gets 1 star because why? You hired a real-life anti-vax conspiracy theorist Trump supporter to play herself in your movie for what? She was completely insufferable to watch, there's no plot, and there's absolutely no reason for it being a found footage movie. She kept filming herself for no discernible reason at all, and she's constantly spewing awful rhetoric, so boo! Escape the Field I also didn't finish because it was kind of grating on the eyes, it wasn't very well made, and it was boring and stereotypical, so 1 star. They/Them was also a very harmful attempt to appeal to a culture. It failed, it was a flop. Such a massive swing and a miss to be like, hey, what if conversion camp was so slay and we all became besties? No. Not to mention, it suddenly becomes a whodunit slasher about 45 minutes into the movie. It's so slow and boring. It's an underwhelming mess, babes. I don't know, all these voices are coming out of nowhere, coming out of my ass. Hypochondriac was also one that I was very much rooting for, so it kind of hurts to put it here. Also a gay little movie, but it's just copying a bunch of other movies really badly. The worst of which being Donnie Darko. It very much had a silly, goofy parody Donnie Darko vibe, only this movie was not aware that it was a parody. Deep Fear is the last movie that I gave 1 star, and it's also the last movie that I didn't finish on this list. I don't like movies where the main horror element is Nazis. I'm not into that. So let's rank 77 through 71, and immediately I'm putting Men at the bottom of the list because fuck that movie. Next, I think I'll just throw up like everything I didn't finish, so The Cellar, Escape the Field, and Deep Fear. At 73, I'm gonna put Dashcam because as much as I hate to admit it, there is a little bit of entertainment value there that these other movies don't have. 72 would be Hypochondriac. It's only going up above the rest because, you know, there is that gay little relationship that I'm rooting for. And surprisingly, at 71, I'm putting They/Them because at least they had Kevin Bacon. Like, he kind of made it bearable to get through that movie. Now moving on to all the 1.5 star films. Firestarter was a real disappointment, and all the stars really just come from Zac Efron's performance. This movie was dull. It looked awful. I don't know what was going on with the camera work and the lighting. And as far as I know, it didn't really change the original worth anything. The original movie is actually one that I've never finished. I got like an hour and 20 minutes into it and was just like, God, this is so boring. But anyway, moving on to a silly little movie called Pussy Cake. This is just unfortunately kind of a badly made film, except for the gore effects. Some of them were really good, but the best ones were definitely all the vomiting, which I don't like. I have a real weak stomach with that stuff. I don't like throwing up in movies. It also just never even comes close to meeting its full potential. Halloween Ends also sucked. We're not having this discussion again. My best friend's Exorcism also totally baited me. It sounded super fun and fresh, and then was basically just like a sitcom exorcism movie. Horrible combination there, trust me. Grim Cuddy can probably be likened to the 2012 Shane Dawson movie Smiley, just a very stupid internet curse horror movie. And then finally we have Surrogate, which is an Australian horror movie in which the most interesting mystery they set up is essentially dropped. It just didn't look good enough or have enough other redeeming qualities to it that would warrant me rating it any higher. So let's rate 70 through 65. Halloween Ends was potentially the biggest disappointment of the year, so I'm putting that at 70. Grim Cuddy was very stupid, and granted, I'm probably not the target audience, but nonetheless, it's going at lucky number 69. Surrogate gets 68 because the mystery that it set up was so much more interesting than Grim Cuddy, but because it was dropped, I mean, it just falls flat. At 67, I'm gonna put My Best Friend's Exorcism because the cast does make this movie slightly watchable, but I would never recommend it. Pussycat gets 66 because I feel like this movie especially will definitely feed a very specific niche. For those of you who can appreciate that most most of the budget went to vomit effects, then this is one of your better options. Finally, it may surprise you that at number 65, I am putting Firestarter simply because I stayed in the theater because of Zac Efron. He's a real actor. He was doing the best that he could with that god-awful material. Just stop putting him in bad movies. I hit my elbow on the table. Moving on to the 2-star category, starting with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I give this movie points for keeping me pretty well entertained and having fun gore, but everything about this movie is so mind-numbingly stupid. Not to mention it has this out-of-place and out-of-touch attempt at commentary on the epidemic of school shootings in this country. In a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, like what? And I've never seen a legacy character treated worse. Never. Was also quite a disappointment. I thought that I could expect something better that stars Sandra Oh, but it was just painfully generic. Same thing with Monstrous, starring the icon Christina Ricci, and so I'm glad that she got to redeem herself in Wednesday. This movie is such a flat, dry Mike Flanagan wannabe. Ricci's doing her best, but this is just such a blatant copycat of several other better movies. It has a cool twist at the end, but it's also a twist that's been done before, so 2 stars. The Stylist also received 2 stars from me because I find the character interesting. The story is fine, but the direction was pretty bad. There's no substance to the camera work. It seems like they probably had a really tight schedule to shoot this stuff on, and then somehow the pacing of the movie still ended up being really slow, but the ending really packs a punch and almost makes it worthwhile. Unhuman is up next, and yet again with a better execution. I think that this is a story that a lot more people would talk about. The acting kills it, but what kills it even worse is the editing. It is some of the worst, the weirdest editing I've ever seen. I'm not even gonna try to make sense of it. Resurrection was another huge letdown of this year for me because Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth are both amazing and they're in it, but this movie's bad. It's like a dumb person's idea of a smart movie. The one saving grace is that we do get to see Rebecca Hall lose her mind again. Spirit Halloween the movie is one that I might be generous for giving 2 stars to, but I did have to let my 8-year-old self take the reins on this one. I think if I were a kid, I would have at least been decently entertained by this movie, but a whole lot of nothing happens. Sort of a nothing burger, but Christopher Lloyd is there and the Spirit Halloween vibes are really good. Now these next 3 are a bit painful and I know that there will be pushback. Chucky season 2 was pretty ass. I didn't enjoy hardly any of it. I think the only episodes that I genuinely loved were episodes 2 and 7, if I remember correctly, and I already shared all my thoughts about this season with Ken and Ashley Sledge on a live stream. It was a complete flop though. I'm so disappointed because you guys know this is one of my favorite horror franchises of all time. I really liked the first season, and season 3 hasn't been renewed yet, but I need it to be because season 2 cannot be the last bit of Chucky content that we ever get. I'll riot. Next one, sadly, would be Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. This is also something that I was highly anticipating this year. A few episodes are pretty good, but in general, I just found the whole thing to be kind of lacking in substance and style. I was very bored by this show. Lastly, probably going to be the most hotly debated besides Chucky would be Bones and All. I liked the message of this movie. It's a really tough one, and I think that it was done well. I just wish that it had more of a plot, was about a half hour shorter, and had a better ending. The whole message of the movie honestly got a little bit muddied for me by the ending. I was just like, why? And I prefer to have a plot in a movie that's almost 2 hours long, but hey, maybe that's just me. The more I think about it, the more I do respect that movie, but it's just not for me at all. So let's rank these 10 films, and again, I'm sorry I couldn't do this right off the bat, but I just need to compartmentalize. The thought of trying to just outright rank 82 titles, I think would have put me into a catatonic state. So let's rank 64 through 55. Spirit Halloween the movie is last. I'm sorry, 8-year-old Kylie. I'll pour one out for you. Then we have because this movie is not awful, it's just nothing that you haven't seen before. Woman traumatized, unpacking her past, supernatural metaphor. Big snooze fest. At 62 we have The Stylist, again with a better treatment, could have been amazing. 61 would be Resurrection, again, we were rooting for you, we really were. At 60 would be Chucky season 2, I'm still just stuck processing how bad it was. At 59 we have Cabinet of Curiosities, mostly just because I was so painfully bored by most of the season, but it did have a few moments of saving grace, which is why it's above the rest. Monstrous comes above that because, you know, goddammit, Christina Ricci was trying her best, and the movie does have quite a bit of style, to be fair. At 57 would be Unhuman, and you hate to see the wasted potential, you really do. At 56 we have Bones and All. Now, I know that I said that this one really wasn't for me, but I respect this movie and what it can do for others. Lastly, this might surprise you, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes in at the top at number 55. Listen, I was entertained by this shit show, and sometimes that's all that we can ask of movies. Onwards and upwards to our 2.5-star films. Are you tired yet? I think that this is probably my biggest category. That makes sense sense because 2.5 is just right in the middle of the road. Not bad necessarily, but definitely not good. Well, I actually loved a couple of these movies, so just bear with me. This also might be the most controversial section of my video, I'm not sure yet. Up first is The House, a fairly well-liked film. I love stop motion animation to death, and the cast of this movie was stacked. It has a great director, but I was bored. I didn't have a good time with this movie. I felt like it dragged. There really wasn't a single story that held much of my attention. Up next is a movie that I loved, but I couldn't justify giving it a better score, and that would be Studio 666. This movie is so fun. It's ridiculous. It's gory. The music is so good. I was just having a fun time. Jenna Ortega is also there for like 2 seconds, and I also highly recommend this one if you like Foo Fighters music and you have a big TV with surround sound. Scream Legacy is one that I wanted to love, but I just didn't. It's a fan film of the franchise. Just a weird choice to erase Scream 4 from the canon of this movie. I just feel like that's a big ask for your audience, especially as a fan film. And the acting was not good. There are maybe 1 or 2 standouts, but for the most part, no. I did like the killer reveal, but it was insanely predictable because they killed off literally everyone else. So next up we have Deadware, which is a movie that I was really enjoying for the first 2 acts, and then it completely falls apart. I do see it as one that I'd want to rewatch because I loved the attempt at the 90s vibes, and I was actually getting kind of spooked by the movie. So maybe it'll be better the second time around, I don't know. Jurassic World Dominion is one that I don't think anyone is gonna fight me on here. I also don't know if you personally consider these to be horror movies, but I do, just because at least the original trilogy, those were quite gory and quite scary. I'd call them creature features, babes. This movie was so bad, but I really just enjoyed seeing those characters again. Next up, we have First Kill, one of the biggest heartbreaks of the year. I thought that with the viewership of this show, it would for sure get a second season, but fucking Netflix, I'd like to have a word. If they gave it a bigger budget for the second season, do you even know what they could have done here? Like, yes, I gave it 2.5 stars, but the potential was crazy. And my gay little heart, was like fucking finally, but I get it. It was kind of a bad show. The next one you will surely raise your pitchforks at me for would be Nope. It's simultaneously trying to attack way too many ideas at once while also hammering in those ideas way too hard. We got beat over the head with the whole, some animals can't be tamed. People are obsessed with spectacle. Like, the splay of ideas and the repetition were just so at odds with each other. Stephen Yeun deserved his own movie with the Gordy thing, and then Kaluuya and Palmer deserved their own movie with the alien thing. Separate the ideas, stop giving me a headache. Next up is another critical darling, The Innocents. I'm sorry. This movie is so mean-spirited, and the entire crux of it is basically just like, fuck them kids. It's also one of those, your disability is actually your superpower type movies, and I have really mixed feelings about that. Like, I'm mentally ill, and I've seen several disabled people speak about this, like on Twitter and Letterboxd and things like that. It doesn't feel like a superpower. That doesn't do anything to really recognize and appreciate the disability. But the themes are more so about exploring choosing good versus pursuing power, and that's a really interesting theme explored through children. But this movie is a goddamn slog. Next up is Goodnight Mommy, just yet another extremely pointless American remake. Like, just watch the original German film. Mr. Harrigan's Phone was another huge letdown because it was this super interesting premise that essentially went nowhere. Another hot take, but I also gave Terrifier 2 2.5 stars. I love that you guys love this movie, and I'll take Art the Clown over Jason, over Michael, Freddy, all of them any day. But this movie was a lot. It was so long with still not enough plot and still not enough lore. Next is Run Sweetheart Run, which I talked about I think in my October or September recap. I have a whole history with that movie, like a whole story. It was bad. It was extremely pandery and stupid, and I just don't like having my intelligence questioned. Next up is Deadstream, which is one that I recommend if you love Evil Dead, but it's just not for me. I wish that I liked Evil Dead. You guys seem like you have so much fun. Next is Hulu's Hellraiser. This was just so dry and undaring. I just still haven't processed that there wasn't even an attempt at the subversive. Like, how dare you make a conventional Hellraiser out of all the movies? This movie will be great for people who don't care so much about the horniness of the original Hellraiser, but I personally find that to be a really crucial element of the franchise. Or like, any sense of depravity would have been nice. The last 2.5 star movie of the day is Glorious. Glory hole glorious. This movie just fails to tie things together. The story is weird. It really doesn't do anything for me. It seems like this movie assumes that in order to be Lovecraftian, all you have to do is copy everything that Color Out of Space did, but they just didn't quite stick the landing, so I say let's rank all of these middle of the roaders. The main thing that I realized with this category story is that these movies all have something good about them, or they have a really good premise, but there is just a fail at a follow through. So let's rank 54 through 40, and then we're in the top 40. Are you so excited? Goodnight Mommy is last in this category. I love you, Naomi Campbell, but you're so much better than this. Tell your agent, we don't want this. I have to sneeze. We're good. At 53, we have The Innocents. I forgot to mention they kill a cat on screen, and I have no patience for that, so bye. The House is at 52 because I remember it being gorgeous, but I couldn't tell you a single plot point about it. It was very forgettable for me. Mr. Harrigan's Phone is at 51 for how annoyingly incomplete it feels. Run, Sweetheart, Run made it to number 50 for me really enjoying the first half of it, and then it becomes really redundant and girl bossy, so ew. Deadstream broke into the 40s at 49 because it really gets internet culture, but then it just becomes Evil Dead. Scream Legacy I wanted to like a lot more than I did, but it really only has the good third act. Hellraiser is at 47. Honestly, it's perfectly fine, but it's just really mediocre. Glorious was a little bit more daring, so that one goes above it. I thought that it was still pretty funky and fresh. Deadware is next. I really quite enjoyed the first two acts. Like I said, I just really wish it stuck the landing. Jurassic World Dominion also just has a really special place in my heart because Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum especially, they carried. He stole every single scene that he was in. First Kill is at 43. It made the middle tier of this list because my inner gay child was like, I am here for this. Terrifier 2 is at 42. I really want to rank this higher, but it still has quite a lot of potential to meet, and I really hope that Terrifier 3 is like an hour and a half. Nope is at 41 because there's so much that it did well, but it's just a mess, and I will stand by that because I saw the movie more than once. So at the top of the 2.5 star category is Studio 666. I genuinely loved this movie. I loved the music. I thought it was super funny, but it is bad. Finally, on to 3-star movies, which are movies that I classify as being worth my time, but maybe not worth much more than that. The Cursed got 3 stars, and I actually recommend this movie because it was one of the weirdest, most unique werewolf folk horror movies I've ever seen. For me personally, I just didn't love the ending, but I do kind of want to watch it again. And listen, most of the rest of my 3-star movies are going to be pretty controversial. I just have really high standards, so bear with me. Those high standards don't apply if it's a movie that's really stupid in a way that I enjoy though, so anyway. X also got 3 stars from me. I think that it's one where it would go up upon a rewatch, but I'm not sure. Listen, I needed a whole lot more substance behind all that style. It just felt like it was pretty and sparkly and stuff, but not really much was actually going on. The main thing is that there's just a lot of wasted potential, and Mia Goth's accent is terrible. Okay, there, I said it. Again, I think that it's one that I'll enjoy a lot more on a rewatch now that I kind of know what to expect, but I don't think I'll ever get over the fact that this movie is also incredibly ageist. This movie is just one big fat message that's screaming, old people are scary, being old is gross. The next one is also controversial, but Bodies, Bodies, Bodies also got 3 stars. I just didn't really find it to be a very successful satire. The movie is fine and entertaining, but to be a good satire, I feel like you need to have a really critical understanding of the material that you're covering. This felt completely like a millennial or a Gen Xer's take on Gen Z culture, and I wasn't into it. Again, maybe better on a rewatch, but it has a plethora of other issues, and I was just really underwhelmed. Beast got 3 stars because it's exactly what you sign up for, nothing more, nothing less. Well, they try to do more by adding this really arbitrary dead mom subplot, but that's a flop. Smile also got 3 stars. It's perfectly fine, but nothing groundbreaking. Wendell and Wild has the same issues as Nope, where it's covering about 5,000 different things at once with the amount of different themes and the amount of characters. House of Darkness actually could have probably gotten more stars from me because I was fully engrossed by it. However, like I've said, it is all dialogue all the time, and the ending is also extremely predictable. But if you love horror movies where Justin Long plays an asshole who goes to a weird house, this movie belongs in that multiverse. Speak No Evil also definitely could have been scored higher, but dumb characters, dumb protagonists. Also, they did some shit to a child on screen that you just don't do. But social faux pas horror is really effective for me, so it's one that I would recommend with caution. Finally, A Wounded Fawn is another movie that I really enjoyed that just unfortunately did not stick the landing. Loved the build-up, but then kind of tuned out out by all the surrealist nightmare of it all. So let's go 39 through 31. Beast is at 39 because it's just not very interesting, is it? Wendell and Wild is unfortunately at number 38. I'm so sorry to report that I don't like this movie because it's also directed by Henry Selick, who did Coraline, and you know what that movie means to me. And A Nightmare Before Christmas, of course, but here we are. A Wounded Fawn made it to 37. I so wish that the ending was better. Same thing with Smile, which is up next. I also would have liked this one a lot more if the ending wasn't so stupid. My friends and I audibly laughed when the creature was revealed, and I'm getting really tired of the whole woman trauma thing. House of Darkness made 35. It's good, just not really rewatchable. Speaking No Evil made it slightly above that one because it's a movie that I would recommend, but with so much caution because it's one that I would never ever watch again. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is at 33 because there are a lot of things that I do enjoy about it, so I bumped it up a bit. The Cursed is at 32, and upon a rewatch, I feel like I might rank it higher because at this moment, I can't even remember why I docked at those points. I just remember not liking the third act because it got very weird and I was hella high in that theater. So that leaves X at the top of the 3-star category for me, and I'm holding out hope for it on a remake, and it was also one of the most stylish movies released this year. And when you consider it's 31 out of 82, that's pretty good, considering how many other amazing horror movies came out this year. So blowing right past your judgments of me, I'm gonna move on to my 3.5-star films. These are films that I would recommend and would probably watch again and might even want to own on physical media. No Exit would be up first. This was a thoroughly enjoyable and tense new Hulu original, so good job Hulu. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I'm counting as a horror movie, okay? Sam Raimi directs it, and a dead Doctor Strange gets resurrected as this dead zombie puppet with a cape of souls. Are you kidding me? If that's not horror, then what are we doing here? And the scenes with Scarlet Witch taking over Wanda's body? Horror. I rest my case, Your Honor. Crimes of the Future also got 3.5 stars, even though in retrospect it probably deserves more, but I'm never watching it again. This movie has impact. I even made a solo review for it because I just wanted to attempt to start to peel back the layers of it. So go check that out. However, the point still stands that this movie is not for me. The Black Phone got 3.5 stars, really only because I found it to be super entertaining, but it didn't do much for me beyond that. The performances were fantastic, but I do wish that the story was a bit more rich. American Carnage also got 3.5 stars for the exact opposite reason. The story is insane, probably too over the top for most people, but the execution is a bit dumb at times. It also stars Jenna Ortega, and not enough people talked about it. Fall also got 3.5 stars from me. The pendulum has swung back with this one. The story really didn't matter too much. This movie terrified me. It gave me vertigo. It awakened an anxiety in me that I didn't even know existed, and so for that it gets some points. I also think that the veracity of human spirit is a nice thing here. Orphan First Kill was also so much fun. I wonder if on a rewatch I'll feel like it'll be deserving of more stars. Only time will tell. It just did so much more than I could have ever hoped for, and so for that I'm grateful. The Invitation also far exceeded my expectations, and I might have rated it higher if the goddamn trailer didn't spoil goddamn everything. I closed my eyes and ears, but then I accidentally looked up to peek if the trailer was still going, and I caught a glimpse of the climax of the movie. Stupid trailer people, I'm gonna put a hex on all of you. Now maybe you'll be happier to know that Pearl got 3.5 stars from me. I did like it better than X. Mia Goth, you already know, it also had a lot more focus to it. I still think there's a lot of wasted potential, and that's never gonna go away, but I think that I also might like it a little bit more on a rewatch too. I get into that wasted potential in my September recap video, so check that out if you want to know more. This next one might be confusing for you. I gave Don't Worry Darling 3.5 stars, and let me tell you why. I won't lie to you people. Harry Styles and Florence Pugh and the gorgeous backdrop kind of distracted me from what was otherwise a pretty horrible story. A story with many a plot hole, but nonetheless, I was super entertained. I also gave The Midnight Club 3.5 stars because the season just really did not end as strong as it started. But Mike Flanagan shared this whole thread on Twitter about what his plans were for season 2, and you should definitely read that if you haven't already. It would have rounded everything out so beautifully, and I just know I would have been in tears. The last movie that I gave 3.5 stars is Sissy, which is another one that I feel like not enough people talked about. It was a super fun and interesting commentary on how we really don't know the influencers that we follow. No matter how much of their life that they share, it is all very tailored, and that's what this movie explored. There's also a really fascinating mystery about the past that's unraveled, and it's a pretty bonkers dark comedy at the same time. I recommend this one and would definitely watch it again. But now let's rank 30 through 19, and then we'll be in the top 20. Don't Worry Darling comes in at 30 because I know it's bad. You don't have to remind me. The Midnight Club is above that because unfortunately it just really unraveled for me with each episode kind of getting worse. The Black Phone is up at number 28. I know that a lot of you guys love this movie. It just was not anything super special for me. Another year it probably would have made it a lot higher if there weren't so many other good movies on this list. Crimes of the Future is next, and it's really only this low because I'm never gonna watch it again. I wanted to throw up the entire time. Fall makes it at number 26 purely because it was such a grand theatrical experience. It was so anxiety inducing. Then we have No Exit, which made it above Fall because the mystery presented was actually really unpredictable, unlike Fall. It took a few turns where I was like, whoa. American Carnage surprisingly comes in at number 24. I really loved how wacky this one was. It was like Get Out meets vegan propaganda. You'll get that when you watch the movie, just trust me. Doctor Strange makes it at number 23 just for being a whole lot of fun and having some amazing horror sequences. The Invitation made it up to 22 because this movie is sexy as hell and it is the cheesy mid-budget stuff that I crave. Sissy comes next because this movie was very fresh and made a very accurate commentary. You'll also be happy to hear that Pearl came in at number 20. She made the top 20, the top quarter percentile of my list. Could have been higher, but again, I'll just never not be frustrated by the wasted potential that I guess they'll never be exploring. I wish that Pearl and Howard were getting another sequel instead of Maxine, but whatever. Orphan First Kill made it to the top of the 3.5 star list at number 19. I felt so serviced as a fan, and I just had a blast with all the twists and turns of the movie. Now, are you finally ready for the rest of my top 20 films of 2022, starting with all my 4-star rated films? I give movies 4 stars when I think that they're great according to my own standards, so when a movie is very good and also really entertaining. Some of these might be more like 3.5 star movies for you guys, but they entertained me in just the right way. They're just missing 1 or 2 critical things that are kind of keeping them from being rated higher. So kicking it off with Scream, which I loved and adored, but I did not enjoy the killer reveal. In fact, it's probably one of my least favorite killer reveals of the whole franchise. Being that that's kind of the biggest draw of this franchise is the whodunit mystery of it all, this could have been rated higher, but alas. Next up is Fresh, and thinking back, I can't even remember what I thought this movie's downfall was. I just remember having a really good time with it, but maybe the movie didn't go much deeper than that. It might have something to do with the ending of the movie not being super climactic, I can't remember. I also consider Our Father to be a horror film. I know that this is a documentary, but it was so fucking vile. I'm considering it a horror film. It was very well done, very well paced, with really insightful interviews. I didn't rank it higher because it has a lot of reenactments, and I don't like those, but Netflix loves to do that. I also have Gatlop Hell of a Game on this list because it's listed as a dark comedy, but it's really not horror. This is one of the biggest surprises of the year. It was like an adult drunk version of Jumanji. It was super fun. Something else that really got swept under the rug was Boo Bitch. I feel like people watched this for maybe a week or something and then it just disappeared. I adored this show. I'll probably watch it again eventually. It rips off like every story beat from Mean Girls, but with kind of a supernatural twist, so who cares? Next is Who Invited Them, another severely underrated Shudder original. It really pleasantly surprised me, but I did have pretty high hopes for it because I love dinner party horror. Social faux pas make me really uncomfortable as an anxious person. That's why Speak No Evil was so terrifying to me. So they're usually really effective as horror movies for me. This one was no different. I also really love the characters in this one. I was rooting for them. Now this next one, I don't even need to, you already know. Barbarian took the world by storm this year. You already know it's one of my favorites. And Zach Krager shared my review of it, and I'll never let you forget. Another one that's not technically horror is Hocus Pocus 2, but I just adored it so much. I loved it just as much as the original, despite its flaws. It's just a good campy time. Significant Other is another one that I'll just sing about till the birds come home, darling. Ew, it made me southern. This movie is so good. It's so fucking good. Micah Monroe is my indie horror scream queen. I feel like she deserves so much more recognition for what she's done for the genre. What a twisty, fun time this movie is. Go watch it. We have a few Christmas movies that made this list too, Violent Night and Christmas Bloody Christmas. Both movies have a killer Santa, and they each have their own unique kind of flavor on that material. In one, Santa is a sexy man-bunned big boy, and in the other, Santa is a military-grade assault weapon. Both very unique but fun takes that I recommend to you this holiday season. The first acts in either movie are not very strong though, so just, power through. Let's rank these bad boys though, 18 through number 8, so we're cracking into the top 10 here. At 18, I'll place Our Father because as horrific and good as it was, I'll never watch it again. Gatlop Hell of a Game same Make 17 because I loved it, but it's not really a horror movie. Boo Bitch is the same, not really horror, but loved it for all the reasons listed. Cracking into the top 15, we have Hocus Pocus 2, and this one is just gonna have to be a double feature night with the original one for me every Halloween season. At 14, we have Violent Night, the boy David Harbour. It made it here despite kind of being a bad movie. I just loved the second and third acts, so it made up for a lot of the mess. Who Invited Them got the lucky number 13 spot. Give me more dinner party horror, please. Scream is at number 12. Despite the reveal, I adored this movie so much, I went to see it twice in theaters. Another surprise, maybe, Christmas Bloody Christmas is right above that. This was just such a breath of fresh air, shot on 16mm, loved the cameras, loved the gore, the style, it was great. That may be recency bias talking though, that could change later on down the road. Breaking into the top 10, we have Fresh, and that's exactly what it was. What a fun time, especially as it showcases Sebastian Stan's ability to play something other than a man from the past with a robotic arm. At number 9 would be none other than Significant Other. Watch this movie, criminally underrated. And finally, for the 4-star category winner and my 8th favorite release of the year, Barbarian. That will do it for all of the 4-star releases of this year. Now let us move on to the 4.5-star films. Before we do that though, I need a little break because my butt fell asleep. Oh man, oh baby. Okay, did some stretching, we're back in business. Also, I discovered some lipstick on my teeth, so how long was that there? I don't know. We're gonna find out in the edit. How fun. So the 4.5-star movies, these are all nearly perfect to me, save for maybe like one tiny detail that I would change. Hatching was probably the surprise of the year, well, one of the surprises of the year. I had no idea what to expect from a movie where a young gymnast hatches a big egg in her bedroom. It was playing at my little theater for like 3 days for whatever reason. I'm so happy it did though, because that's where I saw it. Directorial debut for the Finnish woman Hannah Bergholm, so definitely go watch it. Next would be The Sandman. Not traditionally horror, but certainly dark fantasy. The only reason why I don't give it a perfect score is because some of the episodes towards the beginning were a little bit slow, and I wasn't a super big fan of episode 11 that they kind of randomly tacked on at the end. Prey is also a movie that at this time I can't even remember why I didn't give it a perfect score. What a breathtaking movie. This or Hatching ended up being the surprises of the year, because I expected nothing from a Predator movie, honestly. Next up would be a dark comedy animated show called Little Demon on Hulu. This show is extremely gory. It's about the Antichrist dealing with her familial relationships with her parents, her mother, a Wiccan witch, and then Satan himself. It's so much fun, thoroughly enjoyable, and definitely underrated. The last movie to receive 4.5 stars is The Menu. Anya Taylor-Joy really never misses in this genre. She was in my favorite release of last year too, Last Night in Soho, and this would have been my favorite release of the year if it wasn't for another very sneaky title that we'll talk about very soon. I did a solo review on this one, very fascinating movie, so check that out. The last title that I give 4.5 stars to is a little known show called Wednesday. Yeah. This is also dark fantasy, and it's for the horror babes, okay? The only thing I get rid of in this show is the fact that Wednesday is straight, because it doesn't make any sense to me. But enough said, let's rank 7 through 2 before I get on to the best horror release of the year. Little Demon goes to number 7 because it's probably the least horror-ish out of all of these, but I still loved it nonetheless. Number 6 would be a similar sentiment, The Sandman. I bumped it higher than Little Demon because this show made me cry. It spoke to some really deeply human sensibilities despite revolving around these godlike figures. But in my top 5, here we go, with Hatching, and again, I can't stress to you enough how badly you need to see this film. Go in blind, just trust me. At number 4, we have Wednesday, and it's so high up because I just feel so remarkably seen by this character. I even explained how I have my own personal Enid in real life. It just really hit home. In my top 3, are you ready? We have Prey. This movie is something very fucking special. I feel like it kind of redefined the final girl. I got emotional watching this because I feel like it's really rare in an action movie especially to be able to really see myself. Like I cried in the theater when I watched Wonder Woman for the first time because there was this entire island of these gorgeous Amazonian warrior women who weren't just there to be sexualized, you know what I mean? I'd never seen a woman be that strong while also not being sexualized. Prey gave me another female superhero in the same way, basically. Not to discount the many badass final girls that came before her, but even Miss Ripley, you know, she had to strip down to her underwear before her final fight with the alien. Prey gave us this warrior, this huntress, who, you know, was so powerful because she was so underestimated. I walked out of this movie feeling like I could uppercut a fucking bear. Now at number 2, you already know, The Menu. I'm not gonna keep rambling about it because it already got like a whole 35-minute dedicated dedicated review. I think it's also high time that we get into my favorite release of the year and the only movie I gave 5 stars in 2022. Are you ready to talk about Watcher? Yeah, this shit was perfect. Now, I have a very personal connection with this movie as an American woman who dated a European man. He lived in Poland, and, you know, being surrounded by a bunch of people that English was their second language and they didn't speak it very often, it's a very isolating feeling. This movie captured that to a T. I love how it plays with the viewers because I feel like depending on your gender, this movie will kind of lead you in different ways. There were a lot of layers to unpack with it. I, at this point, wish that I did a dedicated review to it, but alas. The horror elements are also so subtle but so effective. I know I've gone on and on about the handshake in this film, but oh my god, that handshake. Just watch it if you haven't. It's on Shudder. The direction is flawless. And speaking of Chloe Okuno, we're getting more of her work soon because she's directing the next Fear Street movie. That's probably coming in 2024, I think, so a little while, but regardless, we win. That concludes this Goliath list of all 82 horror releases that I watched in 2022. Let me know about your top 10 maybe if you made it to the end of this video. I'd love to hear about your favorites. If you'd like even more content from me, you can find that on my Patreon. I post a ton of bonus content over there, mostly consisting of my first reactions to all the movies like these. So a huge thank you to all the names scrolling on the screen right now. They kind of keep this channel afloat. I wouldn't be able to afford to fund everything if I didn't have them. We have fun discussions over there, and I keep them up to date with all of my channel content, kind of my scheduling plans and stuff. They're almost like the producers of this channel. But if that's not for you, all the rest of my social media is linked down below, and don't forget to order a movie palette for yourself or for a movie-loving loved one. But that'll do it for today. I hope you're excited for the new year. Viva la horror, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! We did it! We did it, boys! We did it!